What's up, everybody? On today's show, Barrett Sallee joins us to talk all things SEC. Could we see two quarterback changes this weekend in the conference?
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 to get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. All right, we will talk with Barrett Sallee coming up in just a couple of minutes, but first, we need to jump into it. Let's do this. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch!
Around the conference.
Over at Auburn, Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers with a potential quarterback situation on their hands, as Payton Thorne not very good last week in the loss to Cal. During Wednesday's SEC teleconference, Hugh Freeze fielding questions about the quarterback position and the decision to be made this weekend, and who plays, who starts, how many guys play. Hugh Freeze, talking about his quarterback situation, said, quote, "There is a very, very short leash on us playing as poorly as we did at that position." After read between the lines, that's saying we're going to start Payton Thorne, but that leash is getting really, really short if he makes any mistakes. He went on to say he was asked if he's given any thought to the possible benefits of getting Hank Brown some early playing time in the season. He said, quote, "I wake up thinking about it. I go to bed thinking about it." We talked with Zach Blackerby, host of Locked On Auburn, yesterday, and he said that there's a real possibility that maybe they could give Hank Brown a start this weekend and bench Payton Thorne. On the flip side, if you think Payton Thorne's still the guy and you're Hugh Freeze, you want him to work through it. Go work through it, get some confidence back against New Mexico, and let's build off that. So I don't know what you do if you're Auburn, but there are some Auburn fans saying we want to see what Hank Brown can do. Forget Payton Thorne. But it seems like Hugh Freeze is not giving up on Payton Thorne just yet. We will see what happens this weekend. Over at Alabama, offensive lineman Caden Proctor has been sidelined with a left shoulder injury that kept him off the field the first 2 weeks. But it sounds like they will be getting their starting left tackle back in time for their Week 3 trip up to Wisconsin. Kalen DeBoer and Caden Proctor saying, quote, "He's been practicing, he's doing well, doing a good job, really was heading in a really good direction at the very end of last week, turned the corner, in a good spot, done a nice job here in the first 2 days of practice." So that'll be good for the Alabama Crimson Tide. They had offensive line issues last week, protection and running the football. Be big to get Caden Proctor back for them. Over at Georgia, star edge rusher Mykel Williams officially listed as doubtful to play this week as Georgia will visit Kentucky on Saturday. The new SEC availability reports coming out on players and injuries. So Georgia going to be much healthier, though. They listed 5 players in their very first appearance report. Tailback Roderick Robinson is out, hurt his foot in the preseason, and is expected out until sometime next month. Defensive lineman Jordan Hall, Xavier McLeod, and Warren Brinson are all listed as questionable with various injuries. Meanwhile, over Kentucky, they listed 7 players out, 2 more doubtful, 1 questionable, and 3 probable. They are really banged up coming off of that blowout loss to South Carolina, and they are 23.5-point underdogs, according to FanDuel, to the Georgia Bulldogs. But Kentucky, they're going to be without their second leading rusher, Jason Patterson, the freshman. Starting guard, Jagger Burton, who they're both listed as doubtful. Keyshawn Silver, the other starting guard who was injured last week, is listed as probable. Offensive lineman Gerald Mincy and cornerback Max Hairston listed as probable. One other note here, quarterback Brock Vandegrift was not listed on the report, so that does mean he's available and should be ready to go. There were some people questioning, could he miss some time? Over at Florida, they are getting ready for their matchup hosting Texas A&M, and Graham Mertz was not on their injured report that came out. So that means he is out of concussion protocol, back and ready to go. Now, Billy Napier had declined to address Mertz's status earlier on Wednesday, saying he would wait for the availability report to come out. Well, Mertz not being on the report means he's likely going to start this game against Texas A&M, but he has said freshman DJ Lagway is also going to play. And a lot of Georgia fans, or Florida fans rather, would like to see a change there. They like to see DJ Lagway get the start, but sounds like it'll be Mertz. Well, we should see both guys play. A few other notes. Wide receiver Trey Wilson had a career-high receiving yards on 6 receptions against Samford. He's listed as questionable on Florida's availability report from Wednesday, so that's not good news there. And then Florida safety Asa Turner, who was injured in the loss to Miami, he is listed as out on the availability report this week. Over at LSU, Brian Kelly dealing with some weather this week. Hurricane Francine making a direct hit on Louisiana yesterday, and Brian Kelly said after being on the field Tuesday night for practice, they had a quick turnaround on Wednesday. Said that they were running a practice, one that started at 9:30 a.m. for LSU. He said we had a normal schedule on Tuesday, which meant we didn't get off the field until 6:30 last night. We then came back. We got on the field at 9:30 this morning. It's a pretty quick turnaround. We were here late last night preparing from a coaching standpoint for the South Carolina game. And our players had to come back in early this morning around 6:30 a.m. They had the rest of the day off to recover, but they will be practiced hard. We'll see what the preparation looks like the rest of the week for the Tigers. Some rainfall is expected at Williams-Brice Stadium throughout the game on Saturday afternoon. So LSU practicing in the rain yesterday might help them prepare for the conditions against South Carolina. Over at Missouri, they are the number 6 team in the country preparing to host Boston College. Now, Boston College ranked number 24 in the country, led by Bill O'Brien. And 3 years ago, when they went and played up in Boston College, Eli Drinkwitz made some comments at the time saying, and no means a knock on Boston College, but if I had my pick, I would love to play a regional matchup. That was maybe more of a rivalry game. That would be a little bit more exciting for recruits to watch from a TV perspective. I don't know the last time Missouri signed a kid from the great state of Massachusetts. Drinkwitz did try to walk his comments back later in the week, but that bulletin board material was out there, and BC beat Missouri in overtime back in 2021, 41-34. So Eli Drinkwitz obviously paying due respect to Boston College this week, talking about how good of a team they are. But he did point out that they are the only top 25 matchup in all college football this weekend. Marks the SEC's 8th non-conference game of the season against a top 25 team. The other Power 4 conferences have faced a total of 8 opponents in this category collectively. No other league besides the SEC has played more than 3 such games against top 25 opponents. So, SEC taking on the challenge, making it tough on themselves. One more note here over at South Carolina, Shane Beamer and company trying to get ready for this game against LSU. And he said on Wednesday that the bandwagon is getting full. A lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon now over at South Carolina. I don't know. South Carolina barely beat Old Dominion in week 1. Everybody's singing your praises. You beat the heck out of Kentucky week 2. But what are you? Are you more the team we saw in week 1 or more the team we saw in week 2? We will find out this weekend against LSU. All right. Thank you guys for making a Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, Barrett Sallee will join us. We'll talk all things SEC with him. Stick around. First, I want to remind you guys, today's episode is brought to you by Factor Meals. And when it comes to Factor Meals, you can fuel up with their no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. So 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week. You're always going to have new flavors to explore. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. It's up to you what you want to eat. You choose, and Factor Meals makes it very easy for you. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and make sure you use our code LockedOnCollege50. That'll get you 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code LockedOnCollege50 Just go to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and get that 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. This episode also presented to you by our friends over at FanDuel. And look, you've heard us talk all about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, and we got something going on for you guys now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. And then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. And if that's not enough, be sure to check out FanDuel's Profit Boost going on in the app. Use it for FanDuel's Double Your Winnings for all of this Sunday, September 15th. Pre-game moneyline bets. Profit Boost will be live starting Thursday, which is today. View your account page now to learn more about FanDuel's Profit Boost. Just visit FanDuel.com, download America's #1 sports book, FanDuel.com, for all the latest SEC odds going into this weekend. Rolling along here, Locked On SEC, and man, pleasure to get this guy. I've been trying to get him on for a while. He is a longtime college football writer and analyst. Barrett Sallee, he is now host of the College Football Smothered and Covered right here on our own Locked On Podcast Network, covering your teams every day. Barrett, welcome in, bud. It's good to get you on, man.
My pleasure, man. It's great to see you. It's been since Dallas when you rocked some Shaggy at karaoke night, so it's good to see you, even though it's not. We're not going to do karaoke, I would assume, on this hit, although we can.
It's true. It's true. It's funny. I get excited when I see Barrett's face. It just makes me think, oh, we're doing some karaoke. We're getting closer to SEC Media Days, but we're into the
karaoke and cheap beer. That's what we do best, right?
Exactly. The cheap beer is the key. Barrett, I want to start here. We got a ton of stuff I want to get to with you. This is the first offseason in a long time where we came into the football season and there just weren't a ton of quarterback controversies across the SEC. Like almost everybody kind of knew who their starter was. It wasn't really a battle. They didn't need to come out and announce a starter. We kind of knew who the starters would be, but we got two programs this week that some are arguing should make a change at quarterback. And I want to start with Florida because Billy Napier, obviously, he says they're both going to play, but DJ Lagway, I know it was Samford, but he got the fan base all fired up. We know what Graham Mertz is. A lot of fans are saying, look, the higher ceiling is Lagway. We know he'll make some mistakes, but let's roll with him. He's more exciting. Should Florida make a change there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I did dedicate an entire segment to this on the show the other day. There's no reason for Billy not to, right? Because if you put Lagway in, you're going to go, 6-6 at best, maybe 7-5. If you keep Graham Mertz in there, you're going to go, 6-6 or 7-5. Those two situations are not created equal. With Lagway, yeah, it was Samford, but the ball just came out of his hand differently. He looks different. He looks like a difference maker. And if you're Billy, you're sitting around looking, going, okay, how do I sell the administrators to keep me on board if Graham Mertz is the quarterback? The answer is you can't. If you have Lagway, you can say, that's my dude. Look what he did. Yeah, he had some ups. Yeah, he had some downs, but he got the job done in terms of maybe easing some concerns as to where this offense is going. So, yeah, to me, I'd roll with Lagway. And on top of that, too, if you start Mertz, Lagway could leave, right? Like he is so tied at the hip to Billy. He was so complimentary of Billy Napier in the recruiting process that, those two guys are sort of tied together. So is it going to make a big difference in terms of overall team success? Probably not. Whether it's Lagway or Mertz, probably not. But like I said, a 6-6 or a 7-5 record, they're completely different animals, whether it's Lagway or Mertz. And plus, you saw Lagway stretch the field a little bit. With Mertz, it's more side to side. You can present a different wrinkle, and I think Florida needs that.
And you think 5 or 7 or worse, he's gone? Napier?
5 and 7 with Lagway, I think he might stick around. The thing about it is, like, he's not McElwain, who's a snake oil salesman. He's not Dan Mullen, he's great on TV. He's difficult to deal with. Everybody likes Billy.
Right.
Like, everybody in that complex, like, he's a likable guy. They want to have a reason to keep him. But if you're 5 and 7 with Graham Mertz and you don't put your dude in, DJ Lagway, that is not going to sit well if you're 5-7 and Lagway shows promise, I think they might keep him around because, again, you're selling the vision of the future. And I think Lagway getting the negatives, learning how to lose, getting all the speed bumps worked out now will help him long term.
And what's crazy is Florida's been in this scenario before, right? It was, it's Felipe Franks and Kyle Trask, and then it was Emory Jones and Anthony Richardson. It's like, look, we see the other guy is more talented. Just play him. He's better. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really is that simple. Screw loyalty. Just put the best guy in.
Well, speaking of loyalty, Hugh Freeze has had a certain loyalty to Payton Thorne, who throws 4 interceptions this past week in the loss to Cal. They get New Mexico this week. Barrett, I talked with Zach Blackerby earlier this week. He seems to be on board with make a change. Start Hank Brown this Saturday against New Mexico. What do you have to lose? Do you think they would do that?
Yeah, I think Hugh might. I mean, Hank Brown or Walker White. I don't care who it is. It's interesting, and Hugh said this in the press conference on Monday or whenever it was, that Payton Thorne has proven it in practice over and over again that he looks like a difference maker in practice. He looks like the floor is extremely high in practice, but then you get to a game situation and the floor is really low, like really, really low. And I think he's seen that too many times. So that's why he said he's open to a change. It would not surprise me if it did happen, maybe not to start the game, but the first possible moment to pull Payton Thorne, Hugh might do that. And look, I mean, for Auburn, if Payton Thorne's your guy, what are you going to do? You're going to go 7-5 now. I thought they could be an 8-4 team that included a win over Cal. I don't think they can do that now at all because it's kind of hard to imagine them winning 1 or 2 toss-up games, much less 3 or 4. So, I think they have to. And look, this is Hugh's fault. Generally speaking for him, Malik Willis, Bo Wallace, Chad Kelly, these dudes aren't superior athletes or quarterbacks, but Hugh Freeze made them very effective SEC quarterbacks. It's not working for Payton Thorne. So if you're Hugh, don't you sort of regret marrying yourself to Payton Thorne during the offseason and not going after somebody else? Because 2 off seasons ago, Hugh was definitely in the transfer market in the winter. Didn't get guys. Some of them were not his fault. He did have a guy. Long story. But at this offseason, like you saw what Payton Thorne's floor was. You knew what the issues were, and to think you could suddenly fix that it's pretty arrogant, I think, in my book. And the pride, he needs to swallow his pride. I think he has, obviously, with that press conference. He certainly looked like he has. But it's too little too late, I think, at this point, because Hank Brown, he can be effective, but Auburn is just simply not going to, especially with the offensive line, man. The offensive line was brutal in that loss to Cal. I mean, it wasn't just Payton Thorne, although he had a big say in it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I said I didn't get under, and I get you recruited well with Hank Brown and Garner and those guys, and you didn't want to lose them to the portal, but like you still bring in somebody to compete. I go back to a couple years ago, Brian Kelly, he's got Miles Brennan sitting there, which at the time looked like he was going to be the guy, but they go get Jaden Daniels. And I remember LSU fans going, why are you getting Jaden Daniels? Miles Brennan's going to win this job. And lo and behold, Jaden Daniels wins the job. I'm just saying, like, put more guys in that room. Let it the competition play itself out. You handcuff yourself to Payton Thorne, and oh man, it's been
well,
ugly.
it's just like last year with Ole Miss. They go out and get Spencer Sanders. I mean, you never saw him like ever last year, except in garbage time. And Hugh didn't even bother. And that's surprising to me, knowing him quite a bit. I thought that he would be a little smarter than that.
Yeah, it will be fascinating to see how it plays out. But if you're going to make a change, now's the time, because that schedule is about to ramp up here the next couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have time to make a change down the road. More with Barrett Sallee here in just a second, but want to remind you guys this episode is presented by our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. When you are hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn has all the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn is not just another job board. LinkedIn is going to help you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong places. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows small businesses are wearing so many hats, might not have the time or resources to hire. Go check them out right now. They're going to make the process way easier for you. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. At linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Go post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I want to pose this to you, Barrett. Which SEC team, we're only 2 weeks in, but which SEC team to you has kind of impressed you the most? I know Georgia, they got the win over Clemson, but I mean, Texas, they have probably the best resume win so far.
Yeah, but I had Texas as the best team in the SEC going in. So, that really wasn't a surprise to me. I mean, other than Vandy, right? I think we have to sort of, no one really cares about Vandy. I know it's locked on SEC. No one really cares about Vandy, but it is Vandy. The correct answer is Vandy. But South Carolina, I thought it would be the complete opposite last week in Kentucky, where Kentucky rolls through South Carolina. They out physical them. They do everything that South Carolina did to Kentucky. It was the defensive front, with Kennard and Dillon, like they are monsters. And on top of that, I liked Lenore Sellers, but did I think he was going to be the kind of weapon that clearly he has become? No. So South Carolina, to me, has been the biggest surprise. Now, we'll see what happens against LSU this weekend, but there's going to be a hurricane. So, being at home with a run-based offense where Sellers is a threat on the ground, that's helpful as compared to LSU, which is, more reliant on Nussmeier. So, yeah, I'd say it's South Carolina. And, Tennessee, I guess, to an extent. I thought Tennessee would be good, but that defense is next level. Yeah. I thought that maybe they'd get exposed a little bit in the secondary, but I think the defensive front has been so good that it doesn't even really matter.
Exactly.
That's how good that front seven is. So, to me, Tennessee is clearly, sort of in that upper echelon with Texas, with Georgia, with Ole Miss, and I actually flopped them with Alabama. I think Tennessee so far has shown that they're a far superior team than Alabama right now.
Is it hard to get a real, I know Jackson Dart, the numbers are incredible, but it's so hard to get a good read on them. They don't play anybody. And I mean, I guess going to Wake is a little bit of a test this week, but I want to see, we did this last year, right? They looked awesome. And then they play Georgia and Bama and they lose. And you're like, oh, I guess you weren't that good. But I don't know. I don't know what they are.
Here's the thing with those big games. It's not that they're not talented enough to win. It's that Lane Kiffin loses his mind. Lane Kiffin tries to be something that he's not in almost every single big game. Go back and look that Alabama game when he did get your popcorn ready. Yeah. They were moving the ball down the field. He goes for it on 4th and 1 at the goal line. It's dude, just take the point, right? And so he doesn't treat a big game in the way he should treat it. Now, I don't know if you read Chris Lowe's story about, Lane maturing, his sobriety, all this stuff. To me, that suggests that he's humbled himself enough to maybe understand that you don't have to go out and show you're the smartest person in every single room. Just go out and get the job done. So I believe in Ole Miss, especially considering they're disruptive on defense. The offense is going to take care of itself. The fact that they added Juice Wells to that team, I mean, come on, that's not even fair. So I still believe in Ole Miss, but that is assuming that Lane Kiffin is not going to lose his mind in a big game. And my impression talking to people around that program is that, yeah, he has become humble enough to recognize that. But it's different when you're actually on the sideline and you have to make difficult decisions like, going for it on 4th and 5 from the 45-yard line or whatever. So we'll see. But I believe this is a different Ole Miss team.
Talking to Barrett Sallee. Last one for you, Barrett. We've seen an SEC team get upset each week. We saw, LSU lose to USC week 1. We saw Kentucky get embarrassed at home this past week. The slate this week's not very sexy. Obviously, BC and Mizzou are the only, ranked on ranked matchup. But if somebody in the SEC is on upset alert this week, who would it be?
Auburn. No, just kidding. I would say LSU. It's a 7-point favorite on the road at South Carolina. That's sketchy, especially in a rainstorm. Now, if Boston College, man, Castellanos is a good player. They can run the dang ball. And, I don't think Missouri has that many flaws defensive front wise. Can they stop this attack? Because this is something different. Maybe keep an eye on that one, because while we all were making fun of Florida State because they lost to Boston College, and look, I saw them in Ireland up front. I know they're not very good, but that might not necessarily be the case, because I do think Boston College is pretty darn good. Now, I will tell you this: Wisconsin being 16.5-point underdogs at home against Alabama is very disrespectful. I mean, especially after what we saw Alabama do last week. I'm not saying Wisconsin's going to spring the upset, but don't be surprised if that's a 4-quarter game and Wisconsin has the ball late with a chance to tie or win.
Yeah, is Ron Dane going to come out of that locker room and suit up or something?
Tyler Van Dyke. Anything for you?
Yeah, it would be quite a story. Yeah, Bama for 3 quarters against USF. What is that?
Oh my God! Your problem. This is the thing. Your problems are penalties and ball security at home against South Florida. You're going to go to Camp Randall and suddenly those things are going to get fixed. I don't know, man. I'm worried about that being a close game for Alabama.
It doesn't feel like they haven't really unleashed Jalen Milroe. Like we were so excited to see DeBoer and Nick Sheridan, but it feels like, dude, open up the playbook for him. What are you doing?
Do something, right? It is weird. It's very weird.
That's very strange. He is Barrett Sallee. Let everybody know where they can find your podcast.
Yeah, College Football Smothered and Covered, powered by Locked On. You can subscribe on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. I mean, look, you're watching this podcast, you're listening to this podcast. You know how to do the podcast thing. So just search College Football Smothered and Covered. It'll be there. You can also listen to College Sports Sunday on Sirius XM. I get to babysit Tom Luganbill for 3 hours on Sunday mornings, and someone's got to do it. And then writing for Outkick. So plenty of ways to get in touch with me.
Love it. Great stuff. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen. Now you go make Barrett's podcast Smothered Covered your second listen of the day. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.